The Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, says the soldiers who receive Congressional Medals of Honor for their role in the massacre at Wounded Knee will be allowed to keep their medals.
Under my direction, we're making it clear without hesitation that the soldiers who fought in the Battle of Wounded Knee in 1890 will keep their medals. And we're making it clear that they deserve those medals. This decision is now final, and their place in our nation's history is no longer up for debate. We salute their memory, we honor their service, and we will never forget what they did.
Okay, let's talk about what they did. On December 28, 1890, Chief Spotted Elk and his band of Lakota were stopped by the 7th Cavalry. Keep in mind, this is the same 7th Cavalry that Custer led and lost at the Battle of the Little Bighorn in 1876. Chief Spotted Elk was on his way to the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation to seek refuge under Red Cloud. It's important to note that Spotted Elk was not a threat. He was sick with pneumonia at the time and he couldn't even stand. Eyewitnesses describe him as coughing, shivering, and so sick that his people had to carry him. This was right after Sitting Bull was killed, and he was trying his best to avoid any kind of violence. And the handful of warriors that he did have were only in possession of hunting rifles. Under the command of Colonel James Forsyth, soldiers then escorted Spotted Elk's band to Wounded Knee Creek. The next morning, December 29th, the 7th Cavalry would surround Spotted Elk's camp. They also set up their Hotchkiss mountain cannons, which were rapid-fire small artillery guns. 4 of them were set up on a ridge overlooking this Lakota camp. There are varying stories of what happens next, but a shot is fired and the massacre starts. U.S. troops and these Hotchkiss guns tear into these Lakota families. Women and children ran for the ravine, but they were mostly hunted down and murdered. General Nelson Miles, the commanding general of the Army at the time, called it a cruel and unjustifiable massacre and the most brutal, cold-blooded massacre he had ever heard of. His words, not mine. Anywhere from 250 to 300 Lakota were killed. They found dead Lakota bodies 5 miles from where the massacre started, which means they literally hunted these people down. 146 of the dead were buried in a mass grave just days later. There's even some reports that people were buried alive. Chief Spotted Elk, who was old and sick at the time, he was also killed. You can see the horrific picture of him dead, frozen in the snow. They found murdered Lakota babies with multiple bullet wounds. There was one miracle. A little baby girl named Lost Bird was found alive beside her murdered mother. But then came the second crime, the looting of the dead. Cultural items were stolen, children's moccasins, a child's bonnet, necklaces were ripped from dead Lakota bodies. Many of these items were sold to museums or shipped overseas and sold to collectors. Scalps and mutilations were also reported in the aftermath. There's one report of a soldier who cut off a baby's foot so he could steal the moccasin. Context matters. This was the era of Wovoka, the Paiute prophet. He created the ghost dance, which was a prayer for renewal and the return of relatives, hope after starvation and broken treaties. State officials and settlers twisted it into a threat, and the Army answered with a massacre. After the killing, the United States hands out 19 Congressional Medals of Honor. And this is what Hegseth is defending. Telling the truth about what happened at Wounded Knee isn't about memory, it's about justice. Silencing this history helps bury Lakota demands for the Black Hills, seized in 1877 despite the 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty. Over 100 years later, in 1980, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled the United States illegally took this land from the Lakota. The government tried to pay him off, but they refused to take the money. They want the land back. Bottom line is, honoring those medals means honoring the massacre of women and children who were dumped in a mass grave and robbed. General Miles called it what it was. History calls it what it was, a massacre. Those medals are a stain on what's left of this country's national honor. Return what was stolen, from the baby moccasins to the Black Hills.